My name is Tom. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Portis. And a little bit about ourselves. So with Portis, we're solving the challenge of letting the mainstream user use blockchain applications. Right now, if you want to use any decentralized application, it's a very difficult process. You have to install some third-party extension. You have to understand a lot of difficult and scary technical terms. And we're focusing on the fact that most people, they don't and they shouldn't care about blockchain. You know, just like you don't care about the underlying technology when you're using your regular Web 2 application. Now, I got into blockchain around 2013. And I read the Ethereum white paper. I was immediately hooked. And I remember preaching about it to people and saying, like, the problem with Bitcoin is that you can't really explain it to your parents how it works. And the great thing about Ethereum is that you wouldn't have to, because it allows you to abstract a lot away from the user. But unfortunately, we're not really there yet. And to demonstrate that, in 2017, while I was working in a cybersecurity company in Israel, me and my co-founder were working together at the company, and we took part in the Facebook hackathon in Tel Aviv. And we decided to create a decentralized application because we were so excited about this space. And although we won first place and everybody loved it, nobody could use it. We had to give our users a list of instructions, and they had to understand how to, you know, you don't see Uber giving you a list of instructions how to use them, or Facebook or Instagram or any of the Web 2 applications, so we can't expect that to happen also with regular, you know, Web 3 applications. They should be just as easy. So we saw the problem, and we decided we want to solve that. And most people are not tech savvy. They don't care about blockchain, like we said. And even getting your hands on some crypto to use an application, well, that's very difficult. And it's just too much friction. And especially if you're not looking to buy something. You're using the application. You need some network fees in order you need some Ether to pay the network fees. But where do you get your hands on that? You have to go to an exchange. You have to buy it. You have to do some KYC. It's simply too hard. And we need to abstract away as much as we can from the users. So the first thing we got rid of is the issue of installation. We give the developers an SDK. Instead of asking the users to go and install something, they get a wallet bundled inside the application. We use end-to-end encryption, so the user creates a wallet on his device, but he has full control. He's the custodian, not us. But he has that cloud experience of accessing his wallet from wherever he wants. So we put that burden on the developers. We told them, OK, you use us, and your users get an easier life. But that's not the only challenges we have in blockchain. Yeah. So the way we see it, the two biggest user experience challenges right now when we're talking about decentralized applications is private key management and network fees. Now, when we're talking about private key management, basically there are three approaches. Approach number one, I'll hold your private keys. I'll be like, if we're talking like Coinbase, which, you know, it's an easy solution, but it's kind of defeating the purpose of decentralization in a sense. And we all hear about exchanges getting hacked and not your key, not your coins, and that makes a lot of sense. So it feels like a shortcut that might not be the way to go. It's easy now, but that's not the long-term way we want to solve it. The other solution is that you store it on the device itself. And now that does give the user complete control, but if he loses his device, if his phone drops into the ocean, that's it, his private key is gone, and there's no going back. The third option is what we do with Portis, which is the end-to-end encryption, which is the private key only lives encrypted on our servers, so you're the custodians, but you can access it wherever you want. So that's the way we tackle the challenge of private key management. But what about network fees? So network fees weren't that much of a problem when Bitcoin started off. Because the whole concept of Bitcoin is that you're transferring money around and that's it. So if the only time you're updating the state of the blockchain is when you want to move money that you have to someone else, which means you can afford to pay the network fees. So UX-wise, it wasn't really a challenge. But when we're talking about Ethereum, well, it's not always moving money around. This is a global computer. You might be voting on something. In the case of the application we built in the hackathon, we built an application for event organizers to create a deposit box for people who want to attend to show they're serious. So they place a deposit, and if they show up, they get their money back. Otherwise, it goes to charity. So the event organizer wants to open a deposit box. He's not paying anybody, but he needs to pay the network fees. So we ran into an issue that this is leading to something which we all don't love, which is friction. So how do we solve this problem of letting people have the gas money without going through the problem of now buying $100 worth of Ether on an exchange when all they wanted to do was just open that deposit box, vote on something in a DAO, interact with this global computer and update its state, not necessarily send money, because then they have money, so the couple of cents of network fees are not that hard. So there's a couple of options. When we started off with Portis, we gave each new user $1 for free. That was like our way of saying, OK, here's a little bit of gas money in your tank. Go and take a test drive, see this new world of blockchain, and try it out. And this is obviously not a scalable. So this doesn't scale. It's open to abuse, and abuse came. As soon as you become big enough, then you grab the attention of all the wrong people, and people will try to abuse it. You put in ways to block that, but it was just like kind of a quick fix to let people play around with it. But we move quickly away from it. Another option is private networks. Now, when you're talking about private networks, well, there's no gas fees, but this is not a public blockchain. And this is kind of circumventing the problem, not really solving it. Now, there are side chains, such as POA, that are very cheap. But still, the difference between 1 cent and free is not 1 cent. And there are famous experiments, if it's by Dan Ariely, where they showed a situation where they gave people the option to buy a treat, like one chocolate for 26 cents, another Hershey's Kiss for 1 cent, and they saw that people bought it around the same. 1 cent or 26 cents didn't really matter to them. But when they took them both by 1 cent, this was a quarter, this was for free, 90% of people went for the free. Because it's simply so easy, you don't have to deal with paying and whatever, and now that's only taking a cent out of your pocket. If we're talking about getting your hands on some crypto, we all know that's a little bit more difficult. So we're still not solving the problem. Finally, the community in the Ethereum community started talking about something called meta-transactions, which is, in a nutshell, it's letting someone else pay for my transaction. So how does something like that work? So the user signs a transaction, you can say a message, but you can think of it like a gasless transaction. And that message is relayed to a server. The server, a centralized server, which has its own node running, its own wallet. It wraps the transaction and pays the gas for your transaction and relays that to the smart contract. The smart contract needs to modify its code a bit so it will know how to understand that transaction, but it's still the user who is sending the transaction, who is signing it, and nobody can cheat along the way. Now, there are multiple ways that how you can compensate the relayer afterwards, and it's nice, but there's a couple of problems here. First of all, this is a centralized relayer, so it's a single point of failure, which goes against the whole ethos behind blockchain. So can we do it better? So one approach was, OK, so the meta transaction, and there's the meta cartel group, if anyone is familiar with, and they had a lot of talks about how can we deal with this single relayer, which is a single centralized point of failure. So we can have a pool of transactions that whenever you want your transaction relayed to the network, you send it into a pool, and you have a lot of miners, and they each, if they want, they can grab a transaction and send it out. But then we have a problem of synchronization. What happens if you have two relayers, both grabbing the transaction at the same time? They both send it. Someone is going to lose gas money. And there were a lot of discussions. And at some point, The guys at Tabuki, and I want to thank Yoav Weiss and Liraz from Tabuki for coming up, and the rest of the team there, for coming up with this protocol and releasing it to the community, which is one of the great things that you have with this whole blockchain ecosystem, is how everything is interoperable and everything is shared. And they come up with they kind of turn it upside on its head. So instead of saying, okay, we'll put all the transactions in a pool, why not have a pool of relayers? Let's give the power to the clients who want to send a transaction. So instead, they choose a specific relayer to relay the transaction for them. But the way to prevent abuse is they also choose 2 other relayers that are monitoring that relayer and are making sure that he's doing what he's supposed to do. And if he doesn't, then the relayer places a stake. When you want to register as a relayer in the smart contract where all the relayers register, then you also put down a stake saying, okay, this is what happens if I'm cheating. I'm going to lose this stake. So those 2 validators, they have an incentive to make sure that he's not cheating, because if he does and they find out, then they can get his stake for him. So this game theory that works in place makes sure that you can have a way of having a lot of relayers, but without worrying about the problem of synchronization while still keeping everything decentralized and nice. Sorry, wrong way. So this whole platform, the gas station network, was very well received in the community, and so the Gas Stations Network Alliance was born, with a lot of various players in the ecosystem which want to promote this, because this is how we remove friction. If we don't need the user to install anything, if they can do everything right in their browser, in their existing browser, if they're not forced to pay gas fees, then we're getting an experience which is really, really good. And people are talking about scalability and how we should worry about scalability, but if we don't have users, if we can't onboard the masses, then scalability isn't going to be really a concern if we don't have usability. So to demonstrate what we're seeing here, I think it's hold on. It needs to reset. For some reason, it's not from the start. But what we're seeing here is actually a demonstration of what happens. So this is a demo application that we created called Crypto Poppers. And once this is over, it will reset, and you will see that we're going to have a new user who comes into the application on their existing browser. They're creating, well, hold on. It'll reset in a second. So, OK. So this user is creating a wallet on the spot inside his browser. He's not installing anything. But he's creating a wallet that he controls. Now, you'll see the network fees are free. And I'm clicking Trust this app. So the user now confirmed in action. He wrote to the blockchain without installing anything, without buying Ether. He was able to write to the blockchain in a decentralized fashion and use a dapp without seeing any friction. So once he even click Trust this app, he doesn't even have to confirm it. He's saying, look, I trust this application. Don't keep bothering me. I know when I'm clicking adopt, that's when I want to, that means I'm adopting. So that's all part of the various friction issues that we're trying to solve with Portis. And the way we see it, this is the holy grail. Like when we started off in 2017, when we built that dapp and MetaMask was the only thing around, this was unthinkable. This was, the friction that we saw our users having to experience was just too high. And now we can tell someone, just go to this website, and you can start using it, and I don't need to give you a list of instructions on how to do that. I don't have to send you to an exchange to vote on something in a decentralized fashion. Now, when I talked about the gas stations network, I glossed over something. So there is a problem here that this can also be abused, because you're the dapp, you're sponsoring your users' gas fees. You're depositing money into the system. The relayers, once they relay the transaction, they'll get back the money that you as the dapp owner deposited. But so let's say this is crypto. We saw crypto poppers, and we're sponsoring the gas fees. But now there's crypto frogs coming along, and they don't like us. So they create 1 million different users, and they all sign meaningless transactions, and they clean out our gas fund. So how do we deal with that? Now, anyone here who was a kid before cell phones was, something mainstream, then remember using collect calls. And this is kind of similar. Your users are basically doing collect calls. But so how come your mom accepted your collect call when you called her? Well, she knew who you were. She recognized your voice, and she decided, OK, I'm willing to pay that fee because this is my son. So you had a reputation with her. So we're offering the dapps the same thing. When a user is logging into your dapp, then we give the dapp back a reputation score, which they can use. This is based on their KYC that they might have already done with us to purchase Ether themselves. This might have been, we asked the user, logging into your Facebook account so we can up your reputation score, do some CAPTCHA, depending on what the dapp needs and decides how much reputation the user should have. But they need a system in place to decide if the user is reputable enough to sponsor his gas fees. There are a lot of problems and challenges that we will still need to tackle, but we're talking to the developers all the time, and we're figuring out their pain points and how we can solve them. And we feel the gas fees, the network fees, was a really big problem from day one. And through the network, through the gas station network, we can finally tackle this problem and make sure users can start using an application right away without, making them jump through hoops. Thank you. If there are any questions? OK. Oh, yeah, sorry. Missed that. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, hold on. They're bringing you a mic.
Hello there.
Hi.
Congrats for the presentation.
Thank you.
The idea of stopping people to abuse the relayers to get tax is to do like know your customer before you pay for them. Is that the idea? Is like I'm going to put another step on the onboarding for me not to let you exploit my platform.
Right. So the KYC can be to an extent that the KYC can be to the extent that the dapp wants it to be. It can decide that the KYC it needs is logging into your Facebook account, because that's enough for me. It doesn't necessarily have to be the KYC. But if the user already did that KYC because they bought some Ether through us, we allow that. We use Wire to let users purchase crypto straight to their wallet. And to do that, they have to go through some basic KYC, which is their email and phone number verification. But if you buy larger amounts, it's also like government documents. So if a user went through all of that, then they have a high enough reputation. But that's not necessarily the minimum requirement. It could be lower. But that's up for the application to decide. Some applications might be fine with that. Some applications might say, no, I want him to do a lot of KYC before that. But we want to give them the option to decide. Yeah. Anyone else? OK. Thank you very much, and have a great day.